Democrat Jay Jones will become Virginia's next attorney general, defeating the Republican incumbent, Jason Miyares. Now, in October, you may recall, Jones apologized for text messages that he had sent where he imagined putting 2 bullets to the head of the Speaker of the House of Commons and then wishing the death of that lawmaker's children and urinating on the grave. And it was even worse than that in this sense. There was no Democrat in Virginia, really, Brett and Martha, to bring you back. Martha, we'll go to you first, that was willing to condemn these remarks and distance themselves and suggest that he get out of that race. I found, an assassination culture that we're living in, how does somebody get away with that?
It's very scary. The bar has obviously been lowered to a point that we never would have anticipated. I mean, think about the fact that Joe Biden once dropped out of a presidential race because there was an accusation that he had plagiarized a section of a speech, okay? And that derailed a presidential race back in the late 80s. So this is where we are now. You can threaten to kill people, to kill their children, to call them fascists, to say you want to see them die in their parents' arms. And this is allowed. This is acceptable. This isn't even something that forces the candidate to be so embarrassed and feel so terrible that they, get up to that podium and say, you know what, I got to step aside. Obviously, that was a huge misjudgment on my part.
And then Abigail Spanberger is asked about it 4 times in a debate and doesn't say she's pulling back the endorsement. She's asked about it for several days on the campaign trail. It does sputter her campaign. She pulls out a win, but never really denounces or pulls back the endorsement of Jones. And here you have it. Now, Democrats in Virginia are going to deal with that as well.
Top law enforcement official in the state.
I'm looking, Brett, at these numbers. I want your take on it. Winsome Sears lost. The bottom dropped out of her campaign. Now, that was picked up by my friends Robert Cahaly and Matt Towery. Their last poll had her down by double digits. As you can see, if we can put up that number again in terms of attorney general, it is a much tighter race. And obviously, Winsome Sears became a drag for Jason Miyares. Rather shocking in this case that Jones won this race to me, Brett. He did outperform Winsome Sears.
He apologized. He came out and did an on-camera apology. He continued to campaign, saying it was, he was joking and moved on. But he was asked about it every stop, every interview he did. Abigail Spanberger was asked about it a lot of interviews. And yet, here you have it. I think it does show, to your point earlier, that Virginia is trending more blue than purplish right now. And does that have to do with the government shutdown? Does that have to do with all the government workers in Fairfax County? Does it have to do with a shift that we're seeing there? I don't know. Yeah. But President Trump's not on the ballot, and President Trump made Virginia very tight in 2024.
One of my criticisms after 24, the Democrats, there was no introspection. There was no self-reflection. There was no course correction, as I say. I do see things that Republicans can learn from tonight, even though we're talking about, in my view, 3 very blue states. And I think the one big thing that pops off the page to me, Martha, is the economy. And I know the president has been doing any and everything, a very heavy lift on foreign policy. He laid the foundation for his economic success. He has his plan in place, but there is a lag period between putting that in place and actually seeing the growth that you want and are predicting that I believe will occur. I would like to see more talk about the economy moving forward from Republicans. I take it out of the exit polling. What do you take?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And, this idea of affordability, which just basically means inflation, that prices are too high, and that's a real sensitivity spot for people, is, I think, something that Republicans do have to look carefully at. It's obvious that they're very aware of it. I saw James Blair today on with Larry Kudlow talking about how he believes that what they're seeing in the future indicator economic numbers are very positive. Scott Bessent has implied the same thing. So obviously, before you get to the midterms, Republicans are going to want to work on making sure that that is tangible, that, that people feel that increase. And I think, if the economy is stupid, it ends up being the simple story of a lot of elections. And I think that's clearly one of the lines here.
You know, Brett, to add a little context to that, we have trillions in committed monies that the president has secured for manufacturing, and add to that bonus depreciation, which would incentivize companies to build faster. That would include automobiles, pharmaceuticals, that would include rare earth, and also semiconductor chips and things like that. Also, the largest tax cut in history. Reagan did it. We had 21 million new jobs created, massive economic growth, the longest period of peacetime economic growth in history to that point. And then you add the energy component, which I don't think you can fully calculate. So there are building blocks in place, I believe, for great economic growth. How soon will we see it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, you know, the projection by Besson and others is you get to first quarter 26 and you start to feel it. But there is this disparity. Big companies are doing great. If you look at Wall Street, they had some great runs there over the past few weeks, and the highest ever. But the disparity of feeling it in the lower section, in the folks who, you know, don't have a lot in the stock market or any, there is, you know, a push and pull of affordability and paying for things that has not equaled out. The tariff thing is a big part of the president's policies, which is why this hearing at the Supreme Court tomorrow, the beginning of this emergency decision that they're going to make on tariffs, is going to be really crucial.
All right, now, just for our audience knowledge, you guys will be taking over at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's 8 minutes from right now. Brett and Martha, we have yet to hear from any of the candidates on either side. I'm sure you'll be carrying those speeches tonight. I want to thank both of you for joining us tonight, and we'll be watching your coverage all throughout the night. Here with reaction to all of tonight's results, pollsters Matt Towery, Robert Cahaly. Well, I got to tip my hat to you. Both of you in your last poll showed the bottom dropped out for Winsome Sears. I believe it had a major impact on the AG race there. Matt Towery, what happened?
Well, it's bigger than that. I'm going to go very quickly because I know that we don't have much time. Shutdown, shutdown, shutdown. That had a big effect on this election. We saw many Republicans start to go down as the weeks continued to go with the shutdown. Tomorrow, the legacy media is going to say it's Donald Trump. It's all his trouble. It's not. It was a shutdown. Number two, Republicans have to figure out how to get the vote out. I agree with Kellyanne. In Georgia today, you had two statewide elected officials, Republicans, defeated at a massive level. No one's looking at it, but the GOP has to figure out how to turn out races without Donald Trump on the ballot.
I think that's well said. Robert, let's get your take. Would you ever imagine Zoran Mamdani winning with his radical positions in New York City?
A simple answer to that is yes. It's New York City. But I agree with Matt.
That's true.
Shutdown is everything. I mean, you know, when you have a country
Robert, let me
with
stop
so
you. Are
many
you talking
people,
about when you say shutdown, are you specifically really referring to Virginia, considering in Northern Virginia so many people were impacted by this government shutdown? And why didn't they blame Schumer? Because I would argue he shut it down. Well,
absolutely. But here's the thing. You've got so many people who depend on the government for either aid or a paycheck. And when that is stopped, they're going to blame the party in power. And when Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the President, they don't understand all the details of filibuster. I mean, they understand the Republicans are in control, and that check's in jeopardy. And so when that check is in jeopardy, when that aid is in jeopardy, whether it's actually in jeopardy or they just perceive it's in jeopardy, they're going to vote their pocketbook, even if they ideologically feel a different way. That's what they were talking about earlier. Kellyanne said that all these numbers said they were going to vote one way based on how they felt about issues like crime, but they voted the other way. I think people are voting their pocketbooks, and Trump was right. The shutdown needed to end, and filibuster, whatever it took, nuclear option, it's got to stop.
Well, I hope for the sake of people, especially if they're going to lose SNAP benefits, I don't want to come on the air and have to beg people to go to the local food bank, and that may be next. Thank you both.
Fox News alert, it's 8 o'clock and polls have closed in New Jersey. The Fox News decision desk believes the governor's race in the Garden State is close. Democratic candidate Mikey Sherrill leads. The Fox News decision desk can also project that Democrat Abigail Spanberger will become the next governor of Virginia. Spanberger defeats Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. Let's bring in Fox News chief political anchor Bret Baier and the anchor of The Story, Martha McCallum. Were you surprised, Bret, that that was called early?
No, you know, it's a purple state, but it's bluish purple. Winsome Earl-Sears did close the gap heading into Election Day, but, you know, there was a Democratic push. She was a decent candidate to begin with. She had some stumbles because of the Attorney General's race, which, by the way, we haven't called yet, Jay Jones, although he is seeing increase in the polls, the numbers that we're seeing. But because of that, I think there was a stumble and a belief that Winsome Earl-Sears could close the gap. Too little, too late. And Abigail Spanberger will become the first female governor of the Commonwealth. She was the person that Democrats said, listen, this is a moderate. She's going to be the example for Democrats going forward. Republicans said she wasn't a moderate. She voted with Nancy Pelosi almost all the time. And but she will become the next Virginia governor.
But this race for AG, where the guy says that he wanted to kill Republican kids, we can't call that yet. Are you surprised that we haven't been able to call that yet? I mean, most people that I know would say, heck no with a guy like that. Yeah,
I mean, there's a percentage of Virginia voters who said that they found those comments concerning, but not disqualifying. And we saw that Spanberger really tried to just sort of sidestep this whole issue. She was pressed upon to say that he should drop out of the race. I mean, it really, really lowers the bar for what is required. I mean, think about the fact that Joe Biden once dropped out of a presidential race because there was some plagiarism in a speech that he gave. But this guy says that, you know, this family should be killed, and that the children are fascists and they should be killed too. But, you know, the bar for all these things has changed
and the guy
dramatically.
With the Nazi tattoo hasn't dropped out.
You know,
I mean, the bar is so low now, you can basically do anything and stay in the race.
She was asked about 4 times in that debate, will you pull your endorsement? She didn't. And it was the easiest, one would think, layup to, in a political race, say, yes, I pull my endorsement. It's time to move on. But she was, you know, it was like an albatross around her neck for the rest of that race, and that's why it was so close in the end. She is going to pull this out in a decent majority, margin rather, and Democrats are going to feel good about this. I think they have less to feel good about in New Jersey, which looks like it's tightening.
All right, so it's tight in New Jersey. This is a state that Harris, I think, beat Donald Trump by about 6 points. He didn't spend any money there. And this guy, Chitterelli, had done well last time against the incumbent, Bill Murphy. It's too close to call. What does that tell you?
Well, this is the 3rd time that Jack Chitterelli has run for governor. The first time he didn't make it through the primary. The second time, as you pointed out, he came within 3 points of Phil Murphy. Nobody has held the same party governorship in New Jersey since 1961, which would indicate, you know, the historical trend is that it's time for it to flip to the GOP this time around. We've certainly had a number of Republican governors in New Jersey, but this is very close. And Cheryl, you know, also weathered a bit of a storm when it came to the cheating scandal at Annapolis. Chitterelli really tried to hang that on her in a negative light. Whether or not it stuck, we don't know yet.
And the insider trading allegations, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wasn't very graceful in wiggling out of those. What are your people in New Jersey telling us, Martha?
Our people in New Jersey. You know, I mean, I do sort of, you know, I go running around town. I see where the signs are. It is interesting in areas that are, you know, sort of working class neighborhoods in New Jersey. You have seen a lot of Chitterelli signs. It has felt that he had the momentum, but whether or not, you know, the New Jersey machine will prevail tonight, that's what we're about to find out.
And we had Barack Obama had to fly in all the way from Hawaii to save both of these women.
That's right. He went to Virginia and to New Jersey. He did not go to New York City.
But he did make a phone call.
He did make a phone call, said he was really, you know, touching on important issues, but didn't do an official endorsement. I think, obviously, the big race that has sucked up all the oxygen is the mayor's race here in New York City. And that could maybe have an effect in New Jersey because people in New Jersey look at New York City and say what happens there could mean something for us.
Do you really think that if Mondami wins, that it could have repercussions in New Jersey, Martha? You know New Jersey better than any of us here at this table.
It's true.
Well, we both live there. But you know, you and I both live there.
I was born there. I just want to say.
Okay, good.
It's also
Jersey strong.
Jersey roots as well. You know, it's interesting to see if you get a counterbalance vote. If